Hello, Natasha.
Hello, Damien.
It's the Lowbrow Lowdown. How did it get worse?
Did it get worse? I don't know, Damien. It got worse.
It did.
Because it felt like this, reading these books is its own pandemic. Just the waves of horror.
It feels like a Catholic penance that I've been given after.
I'm not even Catholic. God damn it.
I mean, I'm a deeply lapsed Catholic.
I'm Catholic adjacent. My mother was Catholic, but I never got baptized, so
I mean, I'm
going straight to hell.
I'm the youngest of 9 children. That's how Catholic my family was.
I think if it were possible, I probably would have been the second oldest of about 20, but I'm the youngest of 2 or 3, but 2.
Yep.
There's a whole situation there. We won't get into it.
Hello,
welcome,
listeners.
Welcome to our listeners. Talking about families and Catholicism.
Oh, yes. I'm Damien.
And I'm Natasha.
And welcome to episode 8 of the Lowbrow Lowdown, where we are reading pandemic-themed literature so you don't have to. And what are we reading today, Natasha?
We are reading, it's called The COVID Killder by Richard Giudice.
Well, look, Jesus. I am assuming I know someone with the surname Giudice spelt this way, and I'm assuming he pronounces it the same way.
Giudice. Okay. It looks like guide ice.
It does.
So somewhere along the lines, there's going to probably be more than one pronunciation. Anyway, so he's written this book. I'll read the Amazon blurb. That's what we do. So COVID-19 destroyed many lives in New York and around the world, killing and infecting millions, ending countless businesses and creating a new way of life for everyone.
Can I interrupt right here and just say, why isn't it infecting and killing? That would be you get infected before you die.
Yes, it should be sequential, like the harms done should increase throughout the sentence.
Yeah, I guess. Well, infecting and the harm is greater of killing, although more people are infected.
But you'd start with the lesser harm and finish with the greater harm. So infecting and killing.
Yeah, sorry, I digress. Continue.
So Jaden Williams becomes deeply affected by the virus and places the blame for it on China. When a tragedy befalls him, he decides to strike back against those he holds responsible for it. After the first victim is found, detectives John Napoli and Terry Franklin investigate the crime. More than one crime. As more murders occur in New York City during the summer, they begin to profile the killer with the help of NYPD psychologist Dr. Sandra Mover. Will New York's finest...
Sorry.
That's my verbal quotation marks, finest. Find the psychopath before he murders again. It's a race against time. We're going to address this. It's a race against time to stop a disturbed individual seeking revenge from taking more innocent lives. Okay.
Right.
There's so much wrong and incorrect about this.
So, spoiler, except no spoiler, because he tells you who the murderer is in the first sentence.
There's no secret.
Spoiler. We're about to talk about the book and we're going to talk about what happens. So if you want to read it and you don't want to be spoiled, read it first.
Or, I mean, look, to be honest, I'm feeling pretty spoiled because I've read it. Spoiled not in a gift-giving kind of way.
No.
Spoiled as in something inside me has rotted and died.
So we do quite literally open on so what I think is a terrible opening line to any story because oh god, I'm going to sound like a broken record. It tells rather than shows, but it opens with Jaden Williams brooded in his Brooklyn apartment.
He
full stop.
brooded.
And I'm just like,
And that's the pace of the book. It's just plodding.
Oh, it really
we are just
is.
told just constantly the whole way through. It is just I keep writing. It just plods through the story. There is just no change of pace, regardless of.
But also, if you are writing crime, here's some advice. And I'm not saying I'm an expert in writing crime, but I've read a lot of crime. One of the key devices you have is to restrict the narration so that the reader does not know everything that's going on and has a sense of suspense and thrill.
And if there's going to be dialogue in a story, make it clear who's saying what.
Oh, my God. Who's talking now? What's going on?
I know. Yeah, okay. Should we get into
the racism?
The racism. That was my next sentence.
Content warning. There is a shit ton of racism in this book.
So many racisms.
Well, so the first sentence, Jaden Williams brewed in his Brooklyn apartment. And look, I'm not going to read the whole book, but the second sentence is worth noting because the 28-year-old African-American reflected on everything that had transpired in his life over the last 16 months. And this kind of hyper focus on ethnicity is really
does not let up.
No, it's like it's all the way through the book. And it's handled in this really clunky way where it's kind of like he's trying to say, oh, I'm not saying all black men are violent, but he's creating this world where there are lots of people who are saying, why are you assuming it's a black man? And it's all like about proving them wrong.
Yeah. I had a point. He doesn't show us that. No, he relies on really shallow. I hate this word, trope.
Yes.
Of character. There's the grumpy detective who hates everyone and everything, who makes assumptions about the race of all perpetrators of all crimes.
Yes. Who I think, like, for all of the calling out the race of or ethnicity of every single person, I think that detective is meant to be black, but he's really coy about saying that. But there are a few points where he's sort of saying, oh, I think he looks like me. I think he's black. And it's almost buried. And it's like, oh, so you're sort of putting all of the kind of homophobia, racism, kind of the judgment of people on their face onto the one character who, like the one detective who's a person of color.
It's very weird. It's, and just very lazy. I like this person, Judah Chan.
Yeah.
He's written a lot of other books with the same detective characters. So
also, his Twitter account is suspended. It was when I looked today. I was like, oh, I wonder what happened.
Did I report it? You know how we were talking yesterday? I was speaking of suspended reporting accounts, you know how my Instagram feed is now full of really conservative, I don't know, something's happened to the algorithm. It's this fucking book.
Oh, of course it is.
It's this fucking book. I'm getting so many suggested follows and images that are really conservative, that are anti-vaxxer, anti-mask, all of that. Like people putting sunglasses on, saying, I'm putting sunglasses on to protect other people from sun damage. It's like, oh my fucking God.
Oh God.
And so I've been reporting so many accounts, but it's like, oh my God, this is just killing my Instagram so bad. And I couldn't figure it out. And then it's like, oh no, it's this book and this and other books like it. So we need to steer clear of these type of books, I think.
In saying that, like,
as much as the erotica was bad, at least didn't do this to my levels of anger.
I don't think he's anti-vaccine. Like, there's this sort of storyline of, again, the black police officer is the one that's really pushing back against the vaccine mandate.
Is it him? Oh, I hadn't realized.
Yeah, it's him.
Gosh. It's so. hard to follow these characters. But one of them, their daughter got COVID, but he was being really coy. Like there's the real anti-vaxxer detective. And then there's one of them, I thought it was the other one, whose daughter got COVID, but he's also, we're just going to wait and see.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, good Lord, you want us to believe that? I mean, it's in terms of believability, maybe it is believable because there are people like that in the world. But in terms of making this story interesting, it doesn't make it interesting. It doesn't make it interesting that these characters are unlikable and have I mean, if this author has a position or has something to say about vaccines, just say it. Don't hide behind these two binary characters that have slightly opposing, slightly similar views. It just seemed really weak.
Yeah, it really felt like it was like a moderate person. And I use moderate really broadly because the guy wasn't moderate, but by comparison to his more extreme friend, he was moderate.
He might have appeared more moderate.
Yeah. And it's almost to say like, oh, there are people who question this that are not, that they're just asking questions. Sidebar, if you are just asking questions, just putting it on other people, learn to literally do the work. Because just asking questions is just bullshit.
Oh, well, just asking questions is just a foil for being
I'm going to say something really, really shitty and clearly I already have a position on it, but I'm going to say I'm just asking questions so that it puts you in a position of not being able to criticize me for it. Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah. And perhaps, and potentially opening up another person who is, trying to answer just asking questions to being on the receiving end of really combative personality. It's just not worth it.
Yeah. We have not really talked about the story much.
No, there's not much to say.
Very short chapters. The first chapter tells us the entire motive of the killer, that his mother and brother had both died of COVID and therefore he wanted to kill Chinese people. Yeah. It's rough. And it's like
it's rough.
It's no nuance, no build, no
no.
He's lost his job, his family have died, and therefore this is the logical conclusion. And it's and there was no desire to kill there before.
No, there really wasn't. But it's framed to us as though there's no other way to manage these feelings but to kill people.
Yeah.
And I found that I thought, look, I know a murder mystery has to, by definition, have a murder. But I thought, again, believability is just zero. Because all I see is someone who needs a shit ton of therapy or even a friend to talk to about his grief and bereavement. And rather than addressing any of that, it's like it wasn't inevitable that this man went and murdered people. He did it and seemed to really like it.
It's sort of this assumption. It's not even an assumption. It's saying that this the way I'm reading it is he's saying this existed inside this man, and I think the hyper focus on ethnicity is sort of trying to make this link that this author, and the way I read it is that this author is making a link between here's an African-American man who's had a really hard time, and therefore the logical conclusion is that he starts killing people. And I think I see only racism in that.
I see only racism in that. It's a very long bow to draw.
The thing is, you can have a black character that is the murderer.
Yeah,
that is absolutely fine.
But it's not
at the
about
moment,
him being black.
Yeah.
Or her. Or them.
Just at the moment, I'm reading this as this person is a murderer because they're black. And if that's not your intention, then this needs to be a first of 50 fucking drafts to get it to a point where that...
Because that point, that assumption is reinforced by specifically one of the detectives constantly making that same kind of statement about the type of people who murder Asians.
Asian
people.
I mean, I am up to page.
The character says Asians.
My excerpt is really early in the book. It's the second chapter, which is the third page. And it's a very specific thing that I want to read out because it is repeated every time it's the perspective of a woman.
Oh. Hit me up.
Okay, so this is the first time it's in the perspective of a woman, but if you decide to read this book, you will notice that it is repeated whenever it's from the perspective of a woman. After her shopping spree...
Just showing Damien the highlights on my Kindle.
Christina got takeout at a local Mexican place. Like many single 30-somethings, she rarely cooked. She didn't want to deal with the hassle of preparing a meal and cleaning up after working all day. With the endless number of restaurants nearby, she had many different cuisines to choose from. I mean, this is just like promoting New York now. While many dining establishments had closed during the pandemic, most had reopened recently. It was a sign New York City was returning to normal. Later on, from the perspective of the reporter, who I've already forgotten the name of. Amy something. She's also just done some shopping and buying some food.
Well, can we... I'm just going to come back to... Yeah, that's right. It's just that
all these women are going on shopping sprees.
Well, can we just say shopping spree? She bought a pair of jeans and 2 tops. That's
hardly
not
a spree. And at one point, like, she comments on how they were all like half off or something. Oh. She never would have paid regular price.
I thought she would. Yeah, they were all on sale, which is why she got them. Who gives a shit?
I mean, very Fran Fine from The Nanny.
God.
She at moments.
It's extremely tiresome. It's just one stereotype after another, and simplistic, just really simplistic renditions of people. So Amy, no, what's her name?
Christina is the first murder victim.
She's the first murder victim.
Chapter 3 is back to William's perspective when he murders her.
So we go between the chapters go between Jaden Williams, who is the murderer, and the detectives talking about the murder.
The detectives, any murder victim.
Yeah.
The reporter and the psychologist.
And the psychologist, kind of, yeah.
So there's like 7 or 8 perspectives across the book.
It's a bit confusing. Oh, actually, no, it's not confusing. It's a bit unnecessary. I would have preferred a nice...
Well, it doesn't work for the genre. It
doesn't work, no.
Really the restricted narration is one of the key points of this genre. And he really, in his personal kind of promotion and his brand, he talks a lot about being a suspense writer. And there is no suspense.
There is not one bit of suspense here.
And look, admittedly, there are different ways to achieve it. Hitchcock famously said that, to show suspense, you have to show someone planting the bomb, but also says you should never let the bomb go off because then the suspense is broken. And so maybe the first chapter could introduce this character, but not tell us exactly who he is. Like,
hint at motive.
Yeah, like hint at something, or like, and the way that it's traditionally handled is if you're going to do this perspective of someone else, is the first opening of the book is the perspective of the first victim and their murder.
Correct. Like, we didn't need that first chapter at all.
No, we also need the third chapter to be from Christina's perspective.
No, we did not need it.
Well, as in, like, because it's like we hear from her, and then instead of her perspective of getting murdered and us not knowing who did it, we're then told, here's Williams from his perspective to tell us how he murdered her. And it's like,
it's a little, yeah. All right. So these detectives, this is where we really are introduced to the 2 detectives properly. And these 2 men are the laziest men I have ever heard of in my life. They could not give a shit about doing their jobs at all. Like, they were like, oh, well, there's no cameras.
But also just like the lack of understanding of police work. So, like, not that I know,
No. But I feel like I've watched enough SVU to get a sense of what's.
But also, like, really logical things. When they do get a tape of the murder, they go and tell the psychologist about it, and she's like, "Well, I'll wait for it to come out in the press so I can see it myself." And it's like, no, you give her a copy of that. Like,
and then they say, "Oh, we'll just watch it tomorrow." Because there's no urgency with trying to, what is this race against time? Oh, we're going away for the long weekend. See you in 4 days.
They went away for like 5 days in the middle of the investigation, and this active investigation where the man's killing on a schedule, and no one worked on it for 5 days.
But they figured out his schedule after like 2 killings. Say,
it's monthly because 2 makes a pattern. So they've discovered the first body. Their lieutenant, who they call Lou, L-O-O.
Oh, it's really awkward.
Yeah.
As an Australian.
But also, like, would you call him Lou? No. I think you'd call someone named Lewis Lou.
Yeah.
And your lieutenant, you would probably call lieutenant. And if he wanted to be called by his first name or by a nickname, he would ask you to. But Lou is like a friendly kind of buddy. But
they don't seem to.
They don't seem to like each other.
They do not. They don't seem to like him, especially one of them, the one who, the really racist one.
The really racist one, who I think is black. Which there are people who, and you see, I see it in the gay community all the time. Oh, I'm not like one of those bad sissy gays. You see those people who position themselves outside their community to get accepted by, the hegemonic elite.
The pick-me's, I think.
Yeah. And so I'm not saying that that's not a realistic thing. It's just not handled realistically.
It's not handled particularly at all.
It gets onto like vaccine mandates. It's very tedious.
We won't go into that. I feel like we've spent enough time on.
They go to Christina's work for the laziest detective work ever. They ask like 3 questions. Okay, bye. It's the same 3 questions every time.
Find out more about her life. Does she have any enemies? Does she gamble? Does she
have a drug problem? No. Okay, bye. They asked her mum the same thing. Any enemies? Gamble? Drug problem? Bye.
And this is coming back to that telling, not showing. In a really, I'm just hearing this. If this were being narrated, I would be hearing it in a monotone. Detective Napoli told Christina or whoever at the front desk that Christina had died. Oh no, that's terrible. She wailed. It's just really dramatic dialogue marker without it's actually she could have fallen to the floor and also it seems a little histrionic, but again that reaction of not necessarily a reaction, but the way this author treats dialogue is a little sloppy. Like Lou, the Lieutenant Richardson, whatever his name is, the lieutenant says something to one of the partners, one of the detectives, but he screams it. He doesn't. It's just and it was in response to the creepy detective saying that the psychologist has a nice ass.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm glad you're turned on by her, and screamed. And I said, no one would scream that. Good on him for picking it up as a problematic behaviour in the workplace.
This is the thing is, like, does he think it's problematic, or is he sort of saying that
you're being distracted, you're an idiot detective? Yeah. Perhaps, maybe that's it. I don't know that I got it. I don't know. I didn't really I highlighted so many passages.
Originally, my excerpt was going to be, before I remembered all of the women descriptions of how they're all into really into shopping. Originally, my excerpt was going to be the whole of chapter 8 because it was just 2 short paragraphs, and it was just that the killer was also watching the same Asian reporter on television and going, I'm going to kill her one day.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry. I've got to get my notes in a better state for each of these.
This was, again, a longer book than we're used to, shorter than the last one, but still, you know.
It was still a few hours of reading.
Yeah,
it took me
a bit of time. Yeah, I wasn't enjoying it, and that didn't help.
But, yeah. So anyway, there's more murders.
So there's a second murder of an Asian man in the street. He's also stabbed multiple times. However, the first murder was an Asian woman in her home and, you know, felt very personal. The second murder was in the street, in an alleyway, and they were like, well, there's a serial killer.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I don't think there's enough dots to join to make that conclusion.
Well, they said the MO, the thing that does link them all is that the victims are Asian and stabbed to death.
I don't think there's enough there yet.
But that's what they said.
Can you imagine if this was police work?
I highlighted that. It's like, that's slack and lazy and extremely.
I mean, they were right, I guess.
And yes, they were right, but only because
he wrote this.
All right. So the second murder, and then and this is about when they go off on their long weekend. Is
there a third murder first?
I think there's an attempt.
I think they get the video. Oh, no, they don't. Do they? I think they go off on their 4th of July 5-day long weekend.
And then someone else. I should have counted the murder victims.
I think there were 4.
I thought there were 4, or like 3 and a 4th attempt.
Yeah,
no, there was a third one. It was a woman, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was a woman. So we're back to Jaden's perspective, and he's waiting out. Has he just? No, there are 4 and then a 5th attempt. Because
I think there's
the third report, which was the one where they got the video footage from.
That's right. It's a crazy homeless person.
That one, it then goes to her her reporting on the murder and him hatching his plan.
That's right.
That his great finale as the 4th murder in
he's going to kill the reporter.
Yeah, is to kill the reporter, and I guess that's the end.
Yeah, well, it's not the end.
Because
it's not the end of the book.
They get the video footage. They tell the psychologist about it, and then she says, well, I guess I'll wait for it to be released to the public.
On social media, okay. So the murderer knows?
It's
fucking ridiculous.
Just have you worked in anything ever? Like, when if someone's working with you, they don't need to wait for it to be released to the public.
No. Look, I mean, and if that's the way you work, you need to think about your
why you're not catching this
protocols.
killer. And then they all go on holiday, and while they're on holiday,
someone else. That's right. Someone else gets murdered.
Yeah, because he's waiting outside the news center, and
he's really pissed off.
Yeah, and then he rings them and asks her, and someone's like, "Oh, she's on leave at the moment," and it's like, no one would say that to a member of the general public.
Absolutely not. She's unavailable.
Yeah, unavailable. Can I take a message? You can tell 2 people who've worked in roles where you've had to tell people that someone's unavailable.
We call them gatekeeping roles.
Yes.
Detectives get sooky having to work. One of them seems to just want to do nothing but eat. There's lots of talk about donuts and kosher eating places and Chinese restaurants.
Yeah. He talks about food a lot. Which
a lot.
I should get on board with, but it's not particularly enticing.
No, it's really isn't.
He doesn't make me want the food.
All right.
They get back from their holiday.
And this is we're this is. Look, the book was so boring. Should we just get to the end? And then
let's just get to the end. We were so bored. We kept sort of going, we really need to finish this book so we can record this episode.
Oh, actually, no, this is what I am going to read my excerpt. Oh, I'm just showing you a blank phone. So this is where the killer, he's in the plaza outside the TV studio or, the TV building, and it must be around the time that he called. And he's reminiscing about his childhood, how he got to this place and why he misses his mum so much because she was such a driving force of his life. Because William's father was one of them because he didn't, one of them being someone who didn't get out of his neighbourhood alive. When he was 12, his dad was shot and killed during a robbery. It devastated the young boy and showed him how cruel life could be. After the loss of his father, he became the man of the house. No. He knew he had to protect his mother. Again, no. So he began going to the gym to build up his young body.
At 12?
At 12, because he's now his mother's bodyguard. I mean, okay. As a teenager, he focused on school because he wanted to be educated to avoid a life of crime. You know, that's reasonable. His decision turned out well as he graduated college and entered the workforce. And that's it. This is how deep we go into.
Well, and this is the thing is, there is a genuine story there to be told. And here's
Absolutely.
the thing. Despite what people say, university study is a way to sort of
change
lives. And I think we could both say that university study changed our lives. We are not from particularly wealthy backgrounds.
I'm the first university educated person in my family.
Yeah, my
for
dad,
generations.
My dad was, he and his siblings were first in family, but my dad also had 9 children and lived in the country. And so it's okay, you want to go to university? Bye. Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah. And I was out of home at 18 because of that.
Yeah, I moved out of home at 17 and then dropped out of uni twice before I finally got my shit together and did it. But there's a real story there that could be told.
There's a real story. It's a missed opportunity for us to get to know his character.
And maybe to understand where this is coming from, because I still don't know, because bad things happen to people, losing your job, losing your mum, a whole bunch of bad things happen, and they don't resort to killing.
You don't resort to killing.
This is not enough.
It's on its own. It's absolutely not enough of a reason. I'm not saying personally like that. In terms of what the author is telling us in this story,
the person he's describing
is not drawing that link very well at all.
The person he has described has not created the vision of somebody who, at this point in their life, would turn to killing. That doesn't feel like a logical path.
Because the person he's describing in this paragraph seems quite determined and motivated and very caring, for all of his machismo. He wanted to become educated to avoid a life of crime, but I'm not saying at the drop of a hat, losing his mother would have been devastating, given how close he was. But it's not obvious that he had to turn to a life of murder.
And here's the thing, is if he was radicalized in some way, which potentially he has been because this pandemic has seen that kind of radicalization, but it's not explained. He doesn't say, he fell in with this bad crowd and they sort of, look, so we haven't built a character that is believable as a killer.
No, absolutely not. There's nothing about him that's believable.
And often the killer in these stories, it's driven by, you find that their selfishness and their kind of ego has been a real issue in their life, and he doesn't have that.
He doesn't. There's nothing that we're just It's that plotting narrative again, which has let this book down.
Yeah.
We're only introduced to him as an unemployed person who's been affected by the pandemic, because his mother died and he's unemployed. But he makes a bit of a dig at someone being unemployed and receiving all of these benefits. I feel like we've read this before.
Yes,
in that first book.
I had a note there where he was sort of talking about how he was on unemployment and it was enough to cover blah, 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 blah. And it's like,
I don't think so.
I don't live in America, but I am aware of the abysmal social situation, and saying Australia is also
abysmal.
Abysmal.
Yeah.
I don't think he could afford to live in Brooklyn and cover his costs on unemployment, living alone.
Living alone?
In the apartment he had when he had a full-time job. Like that, I'm sorry, I don't...
It does not make sense. It's not believable.
And it sounds like Richard Giudice doesn't live in that situation or hasn't lived in that situation. Or if he did, it was a very long time ago when the metrics were different. So
again, look...
He finally tracks down the reporter.
Tries to kill her, but...
she meets her boyfriend.
She fights him off because she's got a lifelong love of...
Karate.
And,
she's been training with Kramer.
Does she kill him? She kills him.
No.
Oh, wait. I'm going to have to go to the last page.
I'm going to have to go to the thing, and I can't remember.
Oh, no, she did. That's right. The other reporter, so the knife that he brought, she ended up getting off him and stabbing him with it. And she did not take out her cell phone and dial 911 until she was sure he had taken his last breath.
Wow.
She felt no remorse for letting the man who had ruined so many lives die. She knew he deserved no mercy or pity. Yeah.
It's such a weird ending and it's not satisfying. More importantly, the detectives never got close.
Never.
And
but seemed to take the credit.
Yeah, they really did. Maybe he's like, maybe this is satire. No.
No, it's not.
Natasha gave me a look of like, really?
Yeah, Damien, you know better than that. Okay, so the detectives hadn't expected the reporter to stop the serial killer, but they were glad she did. Okay. They knew he would have harmed more people until they would have caught him. No.
That would never have happened. He would have harmed people until he stopped. Like, so what they're saying is they were an ineffective force.
Yeah. And that paragraph I just read was pretty much the epilogue. And it's like, that's not an epilogue.
No, it's not an epilogue.
An epilogue is something quite different.
Yes, it is. It's a reflection back on where we are now after how those events changed us. Oh, God.
So, yeah. This was a terrible book. And I'm giving it half a star. Half a
mask.
Half a mask.
Between us, you can have one. Because, half is being very kind. I just, if you want to tell me you are a suspense writer, you need to write suspense.
Suspensefully.
There is no suspense here. And here's the thing. You can learn to write suspense, but the thing you have to learn first is that you can't just tell us everything that's going on. You have to hold something back. You have to,
let's look up, at least start with the dictionary. Go to SUSPENSE. I hope I spelled that right. Okay.
Yes, you did.
Because what we were given was not suspense. It was not. There was no mystery. There was a murder. That was it. It was a murder book.
Yeah, there were just a bunch of murders that were weirdly told from the perspective of the victim until the murder actually happened, and then it switched to the perspective of the killer. And it made no sense why it did that. It was just not good. No.
But I am going to talk about next week's book. We are returning to MJ Edwards.
We are. It's very exciting.
We are so excited. MJ Edwards has... I'm not sure it's whether she's written them all or compiled a bunch of poems, and it's the title of the collection is I Fucking Hate Zoom Quizzes. And I flipped open and I read the first page. I giggled, closed the book, thought, okay,
this is what we need.
This is what we need. Damien and I just like after this, I want to almost get back to erotica because I need to get my algorithm sorted. This wasn't fun to read. I'm not enjoying the non-fun books. I mean, look, I don't know. It's
the challenge is like
love to rip shreds.
Yeah, erotica gets a bit repetitive. You know, every sex scene is written the same, and it's not. You know, there's no creativity in that except for MJ Edwards, who loves to throw in a hot dog.
Just a hidden genius, really.
Yeah.
It's like
but you can enjoy and laugh along with the craziness of it more than you can with this suspenseful crime drama that is so terribly written, so racist, so just awful. Like, how am I meant to enjoy this?
No, how could you? Like, I mean, I love reading trashy books when I'm stressed or feeling I don't want to think. This would just it's just a bunch of words randomly compiled. Like, I think a million monkeys in a room typing would have produced a better novel than this.
It's the best of times. It was the blurst of times. Well, tell us what you think. So you can email us at lowbrowlowdown@gmail.com or follow and tweet at us at lowbrowlowdown on Twitter. And you can share your thoughts about, and I've already forgotten the title of the book.
COVID Killer.
The COVID Killer. I'd be interested for someone else to read it. Are we being too harsh?
Are we a bit jaded by these books? Are they becoming too repetitive for us?
Yeah. I mean, we've got a bit of a plan to sort of COVID to Christmas, and then we're going to talk about our pivot to something new.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of
we've got more books to read.
Yeah, we've got more books to read. And so that's probably the other thing. If you want to tell us what you think, also, what should our next theme be? Like, we've been doing pandemic-themed literature, but we're not going to do that forever. So what's the next kind of cultural moment that we should be... Do you like how I write? You can't see this, but I have a gesture for cultural moment. It's kind of my hands whisking in
Damien
the air.
is juggling at the moment.
Oh, dear.
Indeed.
But yeah. So let us know.
Let us know what we should be reading. There is going to be, I think, we've got our COVID for Christmas book already lined up, but the books between now and then, there's a Halloween themed one, surely.
Oh, yes. There has to be a Halloween themed COVID book.
Yeah, we'll find one.
Yeah.
Yes. We will read all the books.
Yes. So thanks, everyone. Get vaccinated
everyone.
if you can.
Get vaccinated. Vaccinations are available everywhere now. Please get vaccinated. It's the only way out of this horror show that is lockdown. It
is. And this was recorded on the day that New South Wales got their Freedom Day. And
there
we're
were
very
people lining
jealous.
up at midnight outside Kmart. Look, I'm not going to Kmart shame anyone. I am all for it. But there were queues of people lining up outside Kmart at midnight. Nothing spells freedom.
Like midnight Kmart shopping?
Like midnight Kmart shopping. I don't know. It made me a bit sad to watch, actually.
Yeah, I'd love to go to Kmart. It'd be great.
Love to fucking go to Kmart.
Anyway.
Just browse any shop that's not a supermarket or a 7-Eleven.
That'd be the day.
Obviously, I do not do that. I go for essentials only.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, we need to go. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.